let me introduce Dr. Ella Revinovic, which will be our panel moderator for today. So Ella is a research scientist at IBM Research Labs and senior lecturer at the Academic College of Tel Aviv, Yafo. She completed her PhD at the University of Haifa and then her postdoctoral fellowship at the Language and Cognition Group at the Department of Computer Science, University of Toronto, Canada. Ella served as the General Chair of Iscol 2024.
Well, good afternoon. Hello, everyone. So I'm happy to moderate this panel on the role of AI in education and research. Let me introduce our panelists. So first, Yואב Goldberg. Yואב is a professor of computer science at בר-אילן University and the research director of AI to Israel. His research interests include language understanding technologies with real-world applications, combining symbolic and neural representations, understanding how large language models work and how to build useful, robust and learning systems around LLMs. Professor Goldberg authored a popular textbook on deep learning techniques for natural language processing, as well as over 100 scientific publications, including Best Paper awards at top-tier language understanding conferences. Giora Alexandron. Giora is an associate professor at the Department of Science Teaching, Weizmann Institutes of Science. He leads the Computational Approaches in Science Education Lab. His research focuses on learning analytics, educational data science, and AI literacy for school students and teachers. He's an associate editor for the International Journal of Artificial Intelligence in Education and was the program co-chair of Educational Data Mining 2025. Gili Lior is a PhD candidate of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, advised by Dr. Gabriel Stanovsky, with whom she also completed her master's degree. Her work approaches large language models as cognitive systems operating in the world. This by comparing LLM behavior to human cognition, investigating phenomena like gender bias and framing effects. Gili is currently a research intern at Google Research. She was previously a research intern at the Allen Institute for AI and IBM Research. And finally, we have Michael Elkhadad. Earned his PhD in artificial intelligence from Columbia University. He is also a professor of computer science at Ben-Gurion University, with over 100 academic papers on artificial intelligence and computer linguistics. He is also a veteran of computer engineering, leading a large software-based company. We can start. So let me first, we have quite a few topics to discuss. And I wanted to begin with so the general topic of the panel is the future of AI tools in research and education. And I'd like to start maybe from the very first, like straightforward. With coding assistants today being integrated into many students' workflows, we as educators face a real tension between, leveraging these tools for faster learning and faster education potentially, and on the other hand, ensuring that foundational problem-solving skills, thinking skills, do not erode. So with the increase of the use of AI assistants for academic assignment, the questions rise about what computer science education should mean in the next decade, maybe even tomorrow. So please go ahead. What are your thoughts? Maybe more concretely, how should computer science curriculum evolve to balance the benefits of coding assistance and with the need to preserve core computational skills on thinking and programming? So that's the questions. Please feel free. Yeah.
Okay, so thanks for the question. Okay, so how Ella introduced me. So I'm coming from the Department of Science Teaching at Weizmann. My background is in computer science. But now I'm in the science teaching department. That's a very different perspective. And just to demonstrate how different the perspective is, so when we speak about learning, we refer to human learning. You asked about the future of programming with bots. What I'm thinking about is I think that we need to think about the role of programming also in developing our own thinking processes. Simo Poppert, the pioneer of AI and also an educational philosopher. So we spoke a lot about the role of programming in developing our own thinking processes. Now think, for example, about debugging. When you're debugging a program, you're basically holding a mental model of that program, and you basically use that in order to simulate what's happening, and then you compare that to the real behavior, and by that you actually reflect on what's happening in your head. So that's a very important skill for programmers, but also for problem solving. So that's one of the core skills that is developed through programming. And later, Sherry Turkel, which was a PhD student of Simo Poppert and also an MIT professor, she spoke in the book, The Second Self, about how when we program, the computer actually becomes an extension of the self. And what I'm thinking about is actually if we are speaking, so you're speaking about bots, doing programming and about training people to use bots. So if we use bots in order to program, maybe the computer is no longer an extension of the self. The computer becomes a different self that we are interacting with. And I'm wondering what will that do to the essence of programming and to the learning that actually happens when we're involved in programming.
Oh, good. Okay, so I will give a somewhat different kind of answer. It comes from the kind of CS education perspective. So like first degree in CS, students come and they supposedly don't know anything about algorithms, programming, and so on. Then when they leave, they know enough to get hired somewhere, right? That's what we kind of would maybe like to do, assuming that's kind of the role. And then there is a shift here because the skill set is changing. But for me, as a person who wants to just teach computer science, it's weird because I don't really kind of, there are the core things that I want to teach, and then there are the kind of things around them, which is like writing code and like compiling and running and all of those things and the kind of environment. And I think currently we are in a very weird point in time where everything is kind of shaking. There is some revolution, and like things are changing as we speak, and it's really hard to plan. And also so today, if like someone comes to say intro to CS, and they are kind of asked to program, then they are taught as we kind of did before, and then they get an assignment, and then they go to some AI to solve it, and it solves it for them, right? And then they don't learn very well, and that's kind of unfortunate, but I think that's kind of just a point in time, and if we wait a bit more, it will be much more interesting because we'll have like better opportunities. For example, if like they came after they already did these kind of interactions with AI to write small to write small programs, because that's what like everyone would be doing. Then we can kind of have a kind of very different start of Intro to CS, saying, okay, you kind of know how to do this. Now let's look inside what's happening, right? So it's not so you start from they know how to code with AI. Now we kind of like unwrap it to the core. And I think that would be kind of very interesting thing to do, but this will take a few more years to kind of settle. And in the meantime, I think we're kind of stuck, and I'm not sure what to do.
So I want to ask you, actually, Yואב, what do you think needs to happen in that time? Like we need to just sit and wait, or is it something that, I don't know, the academia should do, should change something, or students should change something in order to get to this interesting point of time?
So students should not do anything like this, like they should kind of live in the world, and I think that the kind of world will change in a way that like everyone will program with AI and will do these kind of AI-based interactions like naturally, just because like that will happen, right? So as a kid, you want something to happen, so you kind of tell the AI and you have this small program and it kind of works, and all of the industry is pushing this way, so it will happen, right? And then as educators, we can wait to that point and do some kind of a cool kind of a new curriculum, and in the meantime, we should try to catch up, right? To see what it means to program with AI. Maybe we should try some kind of new like approaches to learning, but everything is like shifting very, very rapidly. So like I think we should update all of the courses, but this will be a very kind of short-term thing, and we should know that it's kind of a short-term thing because we are still not in a stable place.
So the first one is there is urgency. We cannot wait, because if we stay with the methods we have now, they are not appropriate to the current state of affairs. So we need to change. We need to change the way we teach. And there are immediate steps we can take, which are catch up. I agree with the way you have characterized it, but we still need to adapt, and to adapt very quickly. So that means assessment. Assessment needs to be changed, because we cannot give programming assignment like we used to and just check them for correctness. So we need to change the way we do the assessment. We need to change, probably it will be different for first year and the following years, which are less subject to exposure. So we need to change the assessment. So one way to change it, an easy way for now, is just to say that we can ask to students to program, which is beneficial, even if they use an assistant to do it. There is some skill to learn, but we need to do the assessment in front to front, and in front, not automatic assessment, but a grader sitting together with a student and asking the student to explain what's in the program. So these type of steps are good. We need to have assessment for other skills we want to propose and promote, like learning stuff by rote learning, memorizing are also important skills, and we can assess them in exams. We can have more midterms and this type of thing. So we need to make the change. We also need to make the programming assignment AI proof, in the sense that they cannot be solved too easily, by introducing some higher level processes. And the second point I will not expand is we need to think and start thinking about what are our objectives. What do we want students to take out of it? And they need to change, because the skills that we hope the students will acquire will be different in 10 years from those that they are acquiring currently in the degrees. So how to do that, I don't know yet.
So I want to say that I completely agree with the first thing you said about the assessment, and it should change. And I also thought about maybe adding some soft skills evaluation, like presentation. So even if the student is preparing the entire presentation with the AI, it still has to stand in front of a class and explain it. So I think this is another method that should be adopted. But regarding the second thing that you said, that we need to think about the objectives. So in my opinion, as a student, I think that my expectation from, and I don't know if all students would agree with me, but my expectation from the academia was not necessarily to prepare me to work in industry. So I think this doesn't change even with the shift of AI. And I think that when I started university, I figured out that the most important thing that I'm learning is to think, or have critical thinking, and not necessarily that the university will give the answers, but it will give me the tools to ask the questions. And I think this doesn't change, even though the world is changing. So I think that the objective is still the same, but I think that it's the first thing that you said, the way we assess it and the way we teach the next generation of students should change accordingly. But the objective, in my opinion, it doesn't change. So
I'll give you a quick example to illustrate what I mean by changing the objectives. I've been teaching in the past few years research seminar. So what used to be the main skill, it's for graduate students. The main skill was read some research papers, summarize them, prepare slides, present them, argue for, against, make a critique about the paper. That has become too easy now as a task, given the fact that people can use Gen AI to do all of these tasks automatically without deep thinking. So I needed to change the objective of this course to make it a higher order objective. So now what the requirement is not only to take one paper, but to do a synthetic survey of 3 or 4 papers that have been selected together and to understand the differences. And this type of synthetic survey requires higher order skills, which were not yet accessible in previous years, but now students can get to them because the first steps have been acquired by the assistance of the AI. So that's what I mean in changing objectives.
So I think it just like we thought about different levels of objective, because I think the highest objective is that students will read papers and deeply understand them. So this doesn't change, but I think like
the definition of the course objective has changed to some extent.
Can we continue to speak about that?
Yes, I would. Yeah, just a quick comment. I think I can pretty much relate to what Gili said about like making sure we still teach the students some foundational skills, and I think it's mainly important maybe in the first and the second year, maybe in the first year of their computer science education, where they just take their first steps in programming and thinking, and how do I debug my program, how do I create a solution. And I think this is the critical period, the first year of their education, where they do or do not acquire those terribly important skills to be like effective and highly skilled programmers later on in the industry and also in academia. And we talked during the break with Giora about I said something along the lines that I feel at the college that at the first year where we are teaching very foundational and important courses, like students who everyone is going to AI to make their homework. So it's not right, that's the practice today. So students who know how to help themselves, they're capable, they really take advantage of those tools. They help them on how to take, how to really take the benefits of those tools and make their homework, their assignments, their learning process even better. And those weakest students who really need to take all this road by themselves to achieve a certain point, they really many times do not really benefit from making like overuse of those tools, and many times they simply submit homeworks done by AI and they complete their courses without acquiring really like foundational skills. So Giora told me there is a name for this phenomenon, the rich get richer or something like that, right?
Yeah, well, the problem of the rich getting richer with using AI tools that typically the better students are better at Well, when I'm speaking about students, I'm typically seeing in mind actually high school or middle school students, because that's the main students that we're working with. But I think that, well, that's generalized to higher education as well. Typically, the stronger students are better at using those tools, and they get a bigger advantage because of that. And one of the key challenges is devising or developing AI-assisted tools that will help also the weaker students, so they would make so they will make education more equal than rather than increasing the divide.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and
so I would like to maybe counter this point a bit. So it is true, I think, that students who are kind of more aware of AI, you could call them stronger maybe, kind of will make use of these tools. I am not sure if it will benefit them in the long run. So like you will be very effective at like using the tools to do your homework faster. I'm not sure in that case to actually lead to kind of better learning. So in like this particular case, maybe the ones that don't use the tools will be better off. Once we change all of the kind of curriculum, then there will be kind of a larger problem to kind of consider, right? But at this point, if the skills that we want to teach are the kind of core skills, and maybe not doing them with AI is actually good. So in that sense, maybe kind of the rich get poor or something, which is good. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd just like to comment that there's already evidence that this type of cognitive offloading actually is decreasing the ability of some of the students. So you wants us to speak about that?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you maybe like, how do you see different from when I was a bachelor student? I didn't have LLMs, but I had Google, so I could search on Google, and I think we could have said the same thing, like students that has a better access or knows better to their way around search in Google, maybe they would have benefited more than less, I don't know, students with less access to these tools. So how is it so much different? Like, I feel like now, because LLMs, everyone's saying everything is so bad, but I don't think in some points, it's not so different from when it was before, I think.
Well, I think it's quite different also in because of the scale, the complexity of the tasks that the current generative AI can solve. So the cognitive offloading issues that you have just mentioned, that's becoming a huge issue. And as I said, there's already evidence showing that actually students that are using that too much are becoming less capable of solving those tasks when you take away the generative AI from them. And just referring to what Michael said before about changing the objectives, because now generative AI can do things that you're expecting the students to do. So I'm not sure that I agree with that. I think that, well, we still need students need to have fundamental skills, and you need to have the lower floors in order to get to the penthouse of thinking. And the problem is that now with generative AI doing so well, the lower level task, and well, they're not that lower, right? And then the incentive become a big issue. How you motivate students to do tasks that are, that are important for them, but they have an easy workaround, and they can delegate that task to something, to the machine, and they don't need to improve their skills, and then they will never get to the penthouse.
Well, I think that changing the objectives remains part of the example about that. If we think that programming, the low-level programming skills remain important, maybe they will still change in the sense that maybe it's more important to be able to read code and understand it and critique code, and to move some of the weight to things we do not do today, which is to spend more time on verification, on requirement elicitation, on making sure that the preconditions are expected, on non-functional properties, which we never get to because we don't have time, because we spend time on the lower level skills. So the fact that we move the objectives may be a blessing. If we move to verification, it will actually be a two-step advantage, not one.
So I want to add to this. I agree, but I also think that I kind of say that like if we kind of go to the penthouse, we'll never kind of have the kind of foundation, or we'll never reach it. I'm not sure, but I would say it is possible that if we just start like from the top, then at some point you will have to learn also the kind of core skills, right? So, and we can see how it happens also. So like in CS today, we don't start with like assembly programming, right? We kind of start with some higher level language, and then later down, we kind of have this course on the kind of foundations, right? Kind of like lower level. And this can also happen today, right? We can start with, okay, they will build programs that they really don't know how they work, right? But they'll do something functional. Or in the kind of case of the kind of seminar, they'll have this like comparison of like 4 different papers that they kind of didn't really read, right? And this kind of will be kind of effective. At some point, they'll kind of realize that if they kind of want to go even higher, then they need to kind of understand the kind of like building blocks, because otherwise they'll fail, and then they'll do it, but like at a later point, right? So you can start with the kind of easier task, but at some point you'll get stuck, and then there is a motivation to kind of go down and kind of delve deeper. So it's kind of flipping everything around, and I don't know how to build kind of a new degree around that, but it should happen, I think, at some point, or it could happen.
All right. I suggest we will thank you so much for these different, interesting perspectives. So something slightly different now. We've been talking about educational perspective and computer science education. Now I would like to raise the point about academic integrity in AI-assisted research. So things have been happening recently. I think many of you probably heard about recent iClear events. Generally, AI assistants can help with literature reviews, code generation, experimental design, writing.
I think that also before the LLM era, you could cheat. Like you could put a table of wrong results in your paper, and I think we need to differentiate between like maliciously and not maliciously like cheating. Because I think now it's easier for someone to, you know, I give the LLM to do the coding and everything, and I'm not verifying it, and I'm sure that I think it's correct, and I'm not verifying it. So I'm not doing it maliciously. So I can think of someone would sign their name because it's not something that I'm doing. But I can think that people could and
I have a friend, yeah.
I tend to agree with Yoav that it's all about taking responsibility, being accountable for. If you put your name, you're accountable, you're responsible for the publishing. It was already the case before. I mean, like you said, so if you copy someone else's work, or if you publish incorrect work and you sign into the work, you are doing wrong because you're not verifying, you're not checking the sources of the material, you're not checking for a duplication. So you're responsible, you've done something wrong. If you check and you publish and you put your name, everything is okay, but it has always been this way.
So did you verify anything that your students have ever showed you? Like any table that the students
Everything
came with?
except for Yoav.
Yes. Before I joined Weizmann, I did my postdoc at the physics department in MIT, and my mentor was a particle physicist. He used to say that students are much more complex than atoms, and humans are actually much more complex than atoms. And we were working on developing MOOCs, massive open online courses in physics for edX in the early days. And we found out that the way we devise the assessment system, the way people behave in the system, in Hebrew there is a saying, לא הגנב אשם, אחור אשם. לא העכבר הגנב, אחור הגנב. The way you design the system really impacts the incentive mechanisms, and then it translates to how the students behave. And we found out that, for example, by just putting scores on items during the course, basically we incentivize people to do that item, do that questions during the course, the online course, and then they they learn much better during the course, and they come much more prepared to the online exam. But then people start to develop various sophisticated ways to cheat in order to get that points. And then we took those points out, and they found out that people stopped doing the questions and they were coming unprepared to the exam. So I think that the way we need, when we design incentives for research, for learning, we need to consider that people are, humans are complex creatures, and they will react to how we design the system. It is our responsibility to consider that as designers in a way that will incentivize better learning. So I'm not always sure that expecting people to take responsibility before and just to plan ahead and to know what will happen. I don't know if by doing that we will design the system in a way that basically causes people.
like we cannot design this. Like it's a huge kind of system which is in place, distributed, and you can't really affect it, right? So you just have to flow with it, and it's already been shaped in the kind of through the years such that like a personal kind of brand or name is very important, and you have like integrity. So it's kind of core to the system. And I just don't think AI changes that in any meaningful way. So there is noise around the boundaries. People do their reviews with AI, and then other people kind of get mad at them to kind of realize, oh, that person is using AI like everywhere, and they're not really reliable. So, okay, we'll not kind of count on them anymore, right? And currently there is some transition, right? And people are not kind of clear yet, but I think this will just balance out over time. And I think like I would not worry too much about this kind of misconduct or academic thing in research, right? In education, we have to kind of do something else a bit because it's a kind of tricky situation.
Yואב is one who is also very involved in industry, right? I'd like to ask you, so you are saying also, Michael, that as long as a person takes responsibility for their outcomes, that's kind of okay. So I did it myself. I made use of AI assistant for writing, for solving problems, for coding, for experimental design, for testing, for whatever. As long as I'm taking responsibility for whatever I do, for my outcomes, it's okay. So do you think this responsibility you have, it has different implications in research versus industry? Because in my opinion, research, it's perfectly fine. I have slightly wrong results on a table. My work is not perfectly reproducible. So what? So I'm joking, but I'm saying it's different in research, in academia, and perhaps in industry where every single line of code you're writing may potentially affect a product, a big product of a company, maybe interaction with customers. It may cost a lot of money and this kind of thing. Do you think there is a difference for this responsibility and its implications?
I mean, I think people in academia could be a bit sloppier. Sometimes they are, it's fine. But at the end, it's the same thing, right? Like someone will get upset at what you did, and you'll have some negative consequences, right? And in industry, it may come like faster and more direct. You'll just be fired. In kind of academia, you'll have a kind of longer term like trajectory of being like over time. But it's the same core principle. I don't think it's like anything really changes like fundamentally.
Mm-hmm.
I think that maybe in academia it's maybe it's harder sometimes to see these like the misconduct to get. I mean, because now when using LLM to write papers, I think that there are a lot of papers that like from first glance it looks fine, and it's. And only if you read it like really like when, I don't know, when I get a paper for review, that I need to read it and really get into the details to understand that, okay, this thing it was generated by AI or this thing is not completely correct. And I think that maybe in industry, this will not happen just because of what you said. Like someone would like it would cost money to someone and someone will get upset. And I think it won't happen in industry as much as it might happen in academia because because of the system and because of the way that we're doing reviews and the fact that we cannot really verify all the thousands of works coming out. So I think maybe it's a bigger issue in academia than what you phrase it as.
Do we have time? Do we want to go to the next question?
No, it's okay.
Okay, so I'll do like brief. I agree that research these days is in kind of a mess, especially in CS and AI, because like it kind of grew so fast. So there is also like not many reviewers, and there are issues, right? They're not AI issues though. Like AI is kind of playing kind of at the borders of this, right? And it's a bit hard to verify and so on. But at the end, like when you submit something, you want it to be correct, right? You don't just submit to get published. And like have it like sit there, like you do kind of believe your results, right? And I think that kind of remains, and it's fine. And of course, there are at the boundaries, like many kind of for some unknown reasons, we just want to have like many papers published for, and not sure why. And these will remain and will kind of remain bad quality, right? But the core research, I think, should be fine.
Right. So maybe to continue this line of thought and this question, I have a follow-up question. So we are talking about how research today looks like in the era of AI systems for code, for research, for literature review. So in the recent Code Scientist paper, where the authors use models to suggest ideas given a code base, generate more code, and run experiments, 6 out of 19 ideas were considered sound and novel by experts, human experts. We also have Google's AI co-scientist that attempts to help scientists to generate novel hypotheses and research proposals and come up with novel ideas. So I'm asking essentially how being a researcher in the future will look like. We also kind of outsource the ideation of research to AI tools. Is that okay in your perspective?
I'm not sure what you mean by okay. I mean, it might happen. You'll get mediocre papers, and that's it. Like, I mean, I think like once we have, like, let's say in 2 or 3 years, we have these like better agents, and they can actually formulate stuff and like write a recent paper, which is actually sound and everything, right? They'll write some kind of papers, and my prediction, and maybe I'm wrong, but we'll have this like framing of, okay, this is a problem that could be solved by AI. Right, so like this is a paper that an AI could have written, right? And then people will say, okay, we have these, let the kind of AI write them, and now let's try to go to the kind of next level, and then the kind of criteria when you kind of like review papers would be, could have this like been written by an AI, 1 to 5, and you have to kind of be on the kind of right scale list to kind of to get accepted. That's my prediction of like what will happen.
I'm actually quite excited by the prospect of AI-assisted research. There are many tasks, research, high-value research tasks where AI can play a role and accelerate research greatly, and I think that will be a wonderful outcome of our research. I'm taking a few examples. Exploring examples. Like you have an idea, but you would like to see a few examples of that. Can you generate examples? Can you write code to generate examples and look at them and try to detect patterns? So generating examples, we do that manually today, and it's very time expensive, and we can have assistants to do that. And looking at examples is like a great research activity. Ideation also at a higher level, experimental design, experimental setting, critique of your design. All of these tasks will become so much more productive, and and obviously literature research, literature synthesis. We cannot read manually the way we used to. So all of these things I'm really excited about.
Yeah, just to kind of clarify, I totally agree. And like what I kind of meant before is that like if the AI could do all the work, then like it would be kind of mediocre, and then the kind of next step would be people using AI to get better results, right? And then that would be the kind of exciting stuff, right? So the more kind of human can inject in it somehow, kind of will be kind of I think kind of stronger and more exciting result, and that's where things would kind of naturally shift, I hope.
So. I think maybe there's a question of what it will do to us as a specific type of scientist, and what it will do for science as something that should serve humanity. So for example, if we're speaking about drug discovery, so part of it is, for example, there is a task of discovering the structure of proteins that, well, in the past, you need to have a person who would do a complete PhD on discovering the structure of a single protein, and now you have machines that can do that much better, and we understand much more of the human genome because
it's good, right? This is a good thing, just to clarify.
Yeah. So that's a good thing for humans. I'm not sure that it's a good thing for scientists who use to. So scientists needs to evolve to that. So I think that the more and more machines will do things that are more complex and today are done by scientists, would probably be, we need to make sure that the type of discoveries that they are going to do would serve the humankind. So maybe making sure that scientific discovery remains human-centric. So that's seems to be for me an important part of that, or that process of AI doing science.
Yeah, I tend to kind of agree with Giora. I can see the benefits, definitely. I can see the productiveness, the efficiency, the effectiveness, everything. I'm also very excited about using AI tools for research. It just sometimes feels like if we also outsource the thinking itself, it could be that with the time, we as human beings become less and less like skillful or thinking or critical enough to perform some kind of critical review or critical reading of the results of what we get from those AI tools and AI assistants. I'm just a little bit worried of kind of our foundational skills that are going to erode to some extent. That's what I'm thinking. Trying to find some kind of balance between the two. Both use the benefits, but also remain to, or manage to keep some level of intelligence to be critical enough for those outcomes.
So I think I'm not as worried as you, I think, and the way I think about how the daily work of a researcher will look like in the next few years. So I think now, as a PhD student, I think in few years, PhD students would act more like the advisors. So I would have an agent to do the literature review for me, and I would have an agent that does something else. And then I would be kind of the advisor. I don't know what the role of the advisor would be in that scenario, but I think that's also what you said about the fact that I'm not doing things like by myself. So I'm thinking about my advisor that in his daily work, he's not doing so much by himself, but
he did back then.
But he did back then, right? And I think that now I would be that kind of advisor of these skills, and I think that maybe we will not have to have this by ourselves.
No, but I think also so ideation, if you just tell the AI, give me a good idea to work on, and then tell him, okay, now work on it, fine. First, it will not be a great idea, I think. Second, it will give you 10 of them, you have to choose one, right? Because you still have to, some resources. And third, you just feel not very excited, and people want to say, I did something meaningful. So then the second order effect, right, of what you will tell the AI would change. Otherwise, why do you want to do this weird job where you just tell the AI, write a paper, and then you publish it? That's not a kind of fun job to do. So I think people will evolve naturally to just not do this.
And this is not what I meant. I don't know if you're...
You're very optimistic, you have. Yeah, there are many PhD students who would be happy to do exactly this thing. Yeah.
Why?
Get their PhD done, yeah. I think we really need to finish, yeah. Thank you so much. It was really interesting, exciting, yeah.